Hello, everybody, and welcome to Climb the Wall, a podcast hosted by the three of us where we focus on any of the things that go on in your life, whether it be a trial, a tribulation, a struggle, or even good things. We just want to bring people together and show them the things that you would want to do in order to push yourself beyond whatever your normal limits are and improve your life in whatever way you can. And I would say that one of the biggest things that people use to improve their mood or regulate their mood, whether they know it or not, would happen to be today's topic, music. So, with that being said, Micah, if you want to take it away.
Absolutely. Music is one of the things I've been most excited to talk about simply for reasons that Isaiah brought up earlier. I feel like music is one of the most basic general forms of media that people consume in order for stuff like mood regulation, stuff like that. As far as the history of music and how we've gotten to the point that we are today, we have evidence of music that dates back before we have evidence of actual language. According to some historians, the first musical instrument that was ever discovered by modern scientists was actually a flute type instrument. It was just like a pipe with holes in it that dates back to 50,000 to 60,000 years old. Um, as far as actual like stuff that like compares to like language, because I said we have some evidence that puts music even before official languages. Well, it's kind of hard to decide that mostly because language can be spoken as well as written down, and most of the evidence that we have for language is very minimal amount that has been written down. um, but I just thought that was super interesting that some people believe that music was even discovered or created before we even have physical evidence of language. As far as what I just said though, some people, when it comes to music, there's a big debate whether we discovered music or created it. And some arguments for this go back to before like the Renaissance period. We used a
Hmm.
different form of tuning for all music that was just kind of like worldwide. I'm not familiar with what that one was called, but during the Renaissance period and the Baroque period, we made a recent transformation to what's called the A440 tuning system,
Hmm.
which basically just means that the middle A note, if you guys are unfamiliar with music, music works in notes. It goes from notes like A all the way to the letter G.
The
Each,
major scale.
yeah, I'm gonna say, yeah, major, minor scale. There's a different. We have different organizations of these specific set of notes that we use, but our tuning for it is we determine that the note A or middle A is at 440 hertz, which is a specific frequency. We have stuff that, or most music that gets created in today's time is generated in the 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz range. That's pretty much where like we hang out when it comes to like making music, at least in the industry of today.
Hmm.
Um, but I think something super interesting that I also found when it comes to like the tuning of our notes is one of the biggest things when I was doing my research was how did we decide that these specific frequencies were going to be like these specific notes. Like I feel like it's like a super like nitpicky trial, especially because there's pretty much unlimited amounts of frequencies if you really
Right.
think about it. So like,
Um,
how do we get
something I
down to like the
found,
specific tuning system?
something I found related to that basically was talking about because you had said that sounds work in different levels of hertz. Obviously, they were talking about different sound waves being delta waves, theta waves, alpha waves, beta waves, and gamma waves, and the associations that all of
Yeah.
those have with the mind. Specifically, delta waves are associated with deep sleep and relaxation. Theta waves are associated with deep relaxation, meditation, and creative states. Alpha waves, yeah, are associated with relaxed and calm states of mind. Beta waves are associated with active and alert mental states. Gamma waves are associated with heightened perception, focus, and cognitive processing. And all of those, I guess, I mean, are just kind of different ways that you could talk about how tunes are shifted based
Well,
on whatever maybe emotion they're trying to evoke or state of being that they're trying to
yeah,
evoke.
I get what you're saying, and I was actually thinking about that when I was researching. But I was looking at it, and for like alpha, beta, gamma, theta, I think delta, is right.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
like those all vibrate at like the frequency of like the hertz, whatever the rate is at. It's like from 30 to like 100-ish, I think.
It's from
Um,
0.5 to 100. They go through.
oh, okay, my fault, my fault. But yeah, my point being that well, I don't know how like music works. I guess like maybe there can be different frequencies in one song, but I was actually like wondering, did you guys see anything about any like sub frequencies like besides like those like alpha, beta, whatever? Because those ones are like usually like outside the normal range of music. Because I was looking at like I don't know shit like rock and shit like I don't know a bunch of different like genres, and those are usually from like anywhere from like maybe a little below 100 to like all the way up to like 1,000 something or like higher than that for the hertz.
I
Oh,
didn't I didn't go out of my way to like find any specific research about like those different kinds of tuning systems, but something that I do know based on my like former studies in music is that there's actually uh so like frequencies like in music like they move like in ratios. Like if you guys are familiar like with what an octave is or like different
Mhm.
octaves, it
yeah,
basically just like you can say play the same frequency, but like or it's not the same frequency precisely, but you can play the same note in different
yeah,
frequencies because they
Mhm.
proportionally mathematically line up. I believe it's a 2-to-1 ratio for an octave. So like let's say like if middle A, like I talked about earlier, is at
okay,
440 hertz, then like the next octave up for that next A note would be 880 hertz. But more getting into like the proportions of things, there's some jazz tunings that stem from like 17th, 18th, 19th century. They call it, I think they call it like microtones or like microtonial or something like that. And it involves ever so slightly shifting all the notes that we use, like just like detuning them. It would be detuning to us, but like you basically like detune them a little bit so that you're still playing in like the same like proportions. Like there's still the same amount of mathematical distance between each notes, but you're playing on a completely different scale. And I thought that was super interesting to hear about from jazz because in most like modern music history, like jazz has to do with like a ton of how we got to music today. So
mm, that's
I thought it
interesting.
was
So when you say that, like you're playing, say that phrase again. You're playing on which things, but on the same, on like the different scale, or whatever. Sorry, I was trying to understand. Like you're saying you're like mathematically the same distance away from like the notes, but
yeah, so yeah, it's mathematically the same. So like the space between like it's kind of it's man, music is hard to talk about because we're like talking about sounds.
okay, wait. So basically, what I was asking was the way I understood it was that are you saying that like that they're playing like different like frequencies of the scale? Basically, is this the thing?
They're playing just different frequencies in general. The scaling is like all the same. So like for example, like I'll just do like the distance between notes A and B. Like let's just say like that has like a set distance. I'm just gonna say like 50 hertz. That's obviously not the truth, but I'm just gonna like say it for example's sake. Like well, let's say
Yeah.
there's like 50 hertz between the notes A and B in
Mm.
this microtonial jazz tuning. They shift like all the normal notes that we would do, like A and B,
50 hertz.
C, D,
Oh, okay. I see
like
what you
they
mean.
like everything is just kind of like detuned to like it would sound detuned to like our normal ears, but like
Mhm.
in their version of the scale, the notes A and B would still be 50 hertz apart, but it's like different sounds. It's kind of hard
So
to like physically explain because
so
it just has to do with like
so
ratios.
so kind of like I don't know, like if a song just went A, B, C or whatever, and then after that you like descaled it or whatever, and then it went like D, E, F or whatever.
Kind of.
Kind of.
It would be more like you have the A, B, and C, and then like let's say we have A, B, and C in like the normal scale of music that like we all know, like just like music that we listen to on everyday basis.
Yeah.
A is always going to be the same, and all the music we listen to. B is always going to be the same. C is going to be the same.
Right.
Jazz basically is like okay, like A, B, and C. We're gonna give A, B, and C new designations. Like so A, B, and C would all be like specific
Oh,
frequencies before, but their version of A, B, and C is going to be like slightly different
okay.
frequencies.
I see you're saying that. Okay. Okay. Okay.
what I just thought was like more kind of interesting, specifically because when I was going into like my research, not really on like the music side, but more of like the frequency side of stuff, I somehow ran into, I'm gonna call them conspiracy theories for now because they're not like hugely, I guess, talked about, at least in my opinion. But there are some people that believe that the tuning of A440 was was put into place on purpose
Yeah.
because A440, I guess, is like it's like a dead center tone, or like it's a dead center frequency, like in our, it's like one of our dead center frequencies, and like the perception of like what we can hear, like the whole audio range of like what humans can hear in general.
Oh, so it like kind
But
of. Sorry.
oh no, you're good. Um, but basically before the Renaissance period and the Baroque period, the Renaissance period, I don't remember specifically when that was, but the Baroque period was in like the 17th, 18th centuries in Europe. Basically, we kind of like shifted away from like an old form of tuning, and shifted it to this A440, like the A440 tuning, which is like
Mhm.
everything that we listen to today. Kind of became like the new standard. But a lot of people think that the other tunings of music that we've like kind of lost in the past and like was used in like ancient civilizations and stuff, some people believe that those old frequencies that we used to use were like closer to like the true frequency, which is like a frequency that you can like tune into, that's supposed to like basically, in scientific terms, it would activate all parts of your brain, um instead of just like only like a few select parts, because the A440 tuning has like uses such select frequencies in such a tight range in the world of frequencies.
That's interesting.
That's yeah.
Nothing
The
enough for that. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to leave my camera because my notes are on my phone. Give me a second.
No,
yeah.
you're
Um,
good.
so part of my research was about this like uh okay, I'll just read it off the thing. The little known function of the ear is transferring stimuli from our environment into energy. The ear is a generator from the nervous system and brain. Okay, there we go. So the vestibule, it's a part of the ear that controls or contributes to hearing. It it also like basically like vibrates to like when it's stimulated, and that like gives your brain energy basically, and like it. Let me go back and read why, but it said things like walking or like moving or anything was stimulated, but just also like vibrations and frequencies will too. And so it was interesting to me because I was wondering like because you're talking about a true frequency, right? So I was thinking like is there like I don't know a certain amount that regular music would like stimulate it compared to like if you heard that if it would like stimulate it to like I don't know if that has any correlation with what you're saying basically. Yeah.
It's funny that you bring that up because one of the biggest things that the conspiracy theorists that I was watching were talking about, they talked about how yeah, no, they talked about how the system of like music and sound and like even frequencies that we use in technology, like radios, has been like specifically set up to use specific ranges that basically, because like frequencies like travel everywhere, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
you ever hear like when like 5G first came out, like people were like freaking out that like 5G
Yeah.
was gonna like, you know, like give everyone like cancer, you know, like
I got asked that
rot
so
our
many
brains, like
times.
melt our brains.
I
I
bet
think
you have.
what
Oh my
I think what a lot of that hysteria originally generated from is that like frequencies like travel. Like obviously like a cell tower is like emitting frequencies like all
Mhm.
over the place, like not just to our phones, but like it's like kind of the connection between the cell tower to the phone to another person's phone. Like for example, if you're sending a
god.
message, like
Mhm.
the frequencies are everywhere, but the phone is able to pick up those frequencies. That's why there's stuff
Yeah.
like, you know, like data coverage and like, you know, there's specific areas like you can't get like coverage in or like stuff like that. But basically these conspiracy theorists uh were coming out and saying that the tuning system of A440 is like it's like the farthest possible away from us like reaching that true frequency.
Oh my
Because the
god.
way that the guy described it was if you go lower than A440, you're before I explain this part, I explained octaves earlier,
Yeah.
like how 20 hertz would sound similar to 40 hertz. Like you just like keep on like doubling it or dividing it by two, and like you'll find similar sounds, like at least like proportionally.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so basically, this guy was saying that A440 is right in the middle of like two of the octaves of this true frequency. So any lower you go to A440, so like if A440 is here, if we went a little bit lower, it would be closer to the true frequency. If we
Yeah.
went any higher, we would still be closer to the
Like
true
it's like
frequency.
if it was like a circle, basically, it would be like 180 degrees away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Like the musical range is kind of like a cap from us
Mm.
like experiencing different kinds of frequencies and stuff like that, which I thought was super interesting. Because at first, when I was reading it or when I was watching the video, and he was like, "Yeah, the lower you go, the closer you're getting to the true frequency," and I was like, "Well, that's like a little bit like weird. Like I would have figured maybe like the frequency like would have gone higher." But then he also
Yeah.
said, "The higher that you get, the closer you get to that true frequency," which I also thought was interesting. And I was like, "Oh, like." Well, like if everything like music as we know it, sound as we know it, like works in octaves, like
Hmm.
you can play like multiple notes in like different ranges or like yeah like different ranges just because of like the specific math between the energy it takes to generate those sounds. But I don't know, just interesting concept that
That
like
is kind of
A440
wild.
is keeping us dead stuck in the middle.
That is
And
really
like
weird.
So basically,
Um,
because like you're saying, if you like multiply it like proportionally, you'll like the sounds would like sound similar to how it was like a certain amount of hertz before.
yeah,
So if we tuned it to like whatever how many hertz, like but basically what you're saying is that we're tuning it to like what is our hertz rate again? Like 20 to 20,000?
yeah, it's 20 to 20,000 is the range of most music that we listen to.
Okay, okay. So if I am I understanding that like it's like regular frequencies, like as in like 0 hertz would be like like not maybe like literally sounding like this, but it'll be like a really like low sounding sound, and then higher you go. Yeah. Okay. So first off, how do you go lower than 0? Or like
well,
Can
what
you go lower than zero? That's something I didn't even like think to consider. I would assume maybe not, but
well
also possibly yes. Isaiah, you look like you have something you wanted to
I
contribute.
not. It wasn't necessarily about going lower than zero. I've just on the tones of frequencies and hertz and things of the sort like that. Pi, you had mentioned something earlier that um, your ears are basically transceivers or transformers. I don't remember the exact word you use for your brain to perceive the
yeah,
natural world and all that kind of stuff. Have either of you heard something about a thing called binaural beats?
yeah,
Yeah.
I like didn't go into it, but when I was doing my research, I saw that term get thrown out there.
So
yeah,
basically, what it is, if a frequency of 200 hertz is presented to one ear and a frequency of 210 hertz is presented to the other ear, the brain will perceive a binaural beat of 10 hertz. That the frequency of the binaural beat basically is just equal to the difference of whatever two frequencies you're
yeah.
hearing at the time.
It does that.
The thing that's crazy about that is that research suggests exposure to specific beats and frequencies and binaural beats can actually induce that state of being on the brain, which was kind of why I was talking about the delta and all those different state or different waves earlier. Is so, for example, if you experience a 10 hertz binaural beat, you could theoretically trick your brain into an alpha wave state of being associated with relaxed and calm states of mind. Uh, it's not something that's necessarily confirmed as effective or true. They're still doing research into it, is what it was saying. But basically, people will notice an actual difference and that their brain will start to just induce themselves into that state of mind as that sound is presented to them, whether they're actually calm or not.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's
Dang,
there not to go back just from a while back, but this is how I found out about it. It was like the gateway thing or whatever. The
yeah,
whole thing relies on binaural beats. Actually, like that's
really,
yeah, like in the first episode when when you read about it, like the first thing like when they explain it, it tells you about like the whole like how it cancels out. Like I think they used like 100 and 175 or something like that. Because I think they used on a 75, either that or 100. I don't remember exactly what it was, but something like that. But anyway, so yeah, they tell you about that shit, and then yeah, I don't know. From there, they talk about like Delta and other shit, but that's like more reading than like the listening thing. But yeah, no, that's how I found out about that shit.
Isaiah, you're familiar with the Gateway Experience documents?
I
I
am
think we've
not.
talked about them briefly before. Basically, last year in June. Was it last year in June or was it a
Oh,
couple years
3 years,
ago?
3 years, 3 years. Yeah, it's
3
been a
years?
minute now.
Yeah, okay. It's been a
Two or
while.
3. Yeah, I don't
God,
know.
time flies.
Oh,
Um,
might have been 3. Oh my god, yeah, that's crazy.
I'm gonna say,
um,
anyways, it was like a
I don't
year or
know,
two or maybe three ago.
Hmm.
yeah.
Basically, it was like when Trump released all these like declassified documents. I don't remember if you remember that being big in the news
I didn't
at
follow
any point.
politics three
Like,
years ago.
well, neither did I. I just remember people were like going crazy because, like, anyways,
Yeah.
it was they released all of these documents to like distract us from like something else that was going on. I think it was like a big trial that was going on in court. But these documents basically talked about how you can literally like it was literally like an instruction panel to like opening up something called like the Gateway Experiences, which is pretty much like like
I
some
don't like how
crazy
it
stuff,
sounds.
man.
I just don't like how it
Like
sounds.
it was just like basically the way to like discover like your true. It was a very spiritual study. It was a very like
Yeah.
spiritual study that the government conducted, and like it had to do a lot with what Pi said, like the
Yeah, you
binaural
might.
frequencies and like frequencies just in general. Like it was like about like meditating and like
Yeah,
how to astral project, like how to like any telepathic, spiritual, meditative like power you can think of under the sun. I like they like went into like depth on like this is how we got people to do it.
Are they
Like
trying to figure out how to become the Avatar or something? I'm scared. Like,
so kind of actually. So I was gonna say, like if you remember we were talking about meditating, I was telling you guys like yeah, the whole thing is just meditation based basically. Like
mhm.
you just kind of like listen to like those binaural beats, and then after that you like I don't remember what the exact process was, but I used to know what it was. Anyways, you follow this like little process, and then after that, like slowly, like there's I'm gonna say like 21 steps, I think, or something like that, 20 something, and then after that, through that you'll like learn shit like how to like master like uh bio. I think they say like bio something
bio
feedback.
biofeedback, yeah.
Okay, for biofeedback. Okay, yeah. Well, that's like just like understanding your body well enough to like control anything that would happen to that. They go as far as to like include anything from like I think they even included like numbers that that like align with these like numbers you can like say anything to like and anything from like also like light like because which also makes sense too because like there's like pigments involved with like your body like when it like heals stuff. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it went into that and how light can affect that and like how different lights can work against your body healing and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a like it was just an in-depth process of like or an in-depth explanation of almost anything you could want to know, assuming it's true about learning to master yourself and become the avatar, I guess, as you put it.
I mean,
It
Yeah,
was
no, it
I
was
mean,
nuts.
that's definitely the idea put out there, like
I
that,
feel
yeah,
like
you
the
could
simplified I feel like the simplified version of it was just how to manipulate electromagnetic fields. Because
yeah, that is a good
that
way to put
document
it.
also went into how everything has an electromagnetic field. Like my
That's
phone,
true.
mhm.
this wrist pad for my freaking mouse, like
Yeah.
everything has an electromagnetic field over it. Like you don't have to just like generate electromagnetic fields. Everything has an electromagnetic field. But to kind of like I guess to like kind of tie it back to what we were originally talking about, frequencies, man, they're crazy. They do stuff to your brain. And that actually kind of leads into one of the big chunks of notes that I had was have you guys ever heard I guess you can I guess you can just kind of call it like an urban legend of science at this point. But I used to hear this thing in school that was like one half of your brain contributes to
Oh,
like creativity or like,
Mhm.
you
yeah,
know,
the
like
ones about
music interpreting or like stuff like that. And then like the other half
yeah.
is like kind of for like
Is that
logical
not true?
thinking. Uh according to what I found, that theory has been long debunked, at least when it comes to the studies of music. According to like, they have new scientific tools, including like MRIs and like I don't know what they're called, but like the little patches that like uh medical professionals will attach
Yeah,
to your
yeah, yeah,
body
yeah.
to like record like
The electric
electromagnetic
things. Yeah,
activity.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So basically, in a bunch of research that's come out recently in the past 10 years, even some that's come out in the past like 5 to like 2-ish years, uh, listening to music activates parts of your brain all over the place, from the front to the back to the center to the left to the right to like
Okay.
the bottom. Like that, just simply the activity of listening to music activates like, I think I'd have to pull up an exact diagram, but it doesn't really do much for like the frontal cortex too much. But basically, listening to music, kind of going back to what you were explaining, or you guys were explaining earlier about how like your brain has to like interpret the frequencies that go into the ear. That part of your ear vibrates and turns it into energy that you
Yeah.
in your brain perceive as sound. Basically, I guess the scientists that I was reading about and reading about their studies, they basically just say but the process for interpreting music when it comes to the brain actually takes a decent amount of work. Like it's actually like one of the like it's one of the most commonly known involuntary processes that causes your brain to do so much just by simply being active around like the sound that you're hearing. Because basically your brain has to take this conglomerate of sound that's being thrown at you, try to like organize it and like make sense of it in order to turn it into music. Not so
Mm.
much in the way that like and how this differs, I guess, from a little bit how this differs a little bit from like let's say like like how me and you are talking right now.
Hmm.
Like like I'm saying the words, you guys know what I'm saying because when it comes to like more language and stuff like that, language kind of becomes like muscle memory, especially if you've only learned one language before. Like music definitely kind of becomes like muscle memory. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like programmed in a sense to like understand the specific large set of words in this language. So like when you're developing as like a baby and like you're learning the language, like that just kind of like comes like subconsciously, like you're around the language long enough, you start to interpret it and like eventually you can start speaking it on your own, which is
Yeah.
like the process for most people growing up.
Yeah.
But for music, it's a little bit different because while music is a language in of itself, music isn't language of music isn't used the same way that we use English or Mandarin or like any other language you can think of under the sun.
Right.
So basically, the perception process of trying to understand music is so much more difficult because, like, if I were to say the sentence, I ate a sandwich today, like, you guys pretty much all have all the information to know of what I was trying to tell you. I ate a sandwich today. I
Mhm.
ate it. I probably made a sandwich to like make it. Like you guys can like kind of fill in those gaps to like understand like what's going on.
Right.
But with music, there's not like a dead set. Oh, this means this. Like everything is up for interpretation for the most part, which I think kind of goes back into like more like the creative parts of music. Like you can make something sound however you want, but also the like whole creative thing about music is that music can kind of like be or sound like however it wants.
Yeah.
So constantly listening to new music or just listening to music that you already listen to on a daily basis forces you to pretty much activate all those parts in your brain just to kind of perceive what music even is. And to take it a step farther, if you study music as a language, like I found a specific study that was studying children that learn music like from ages like 5 to like 14, and basically they were just tracking brain development versus kids that study music and kids that don't study music. And the earlier that you start studying music in like adolescence and stuff like that, is it was proven to show way different brain development than people that don't study music at all or are less active in music. Like for example, there's kind of like the split down the center of our brains. Like if you guys have ever seen like a picture of a brain, there's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
where like the left
Yeah.
hemisphere and the
Yeah.
right hemisphere is. So people that don't study music, that gap in the middle just kind of looks like it just kind of looks like this. Like if the bottom of the palm of my hand is the back of the brain and this is the front of the brain, like we're looking at a brain from an eagle's eye view. Um, so like the people that didn't study music, their brain typically like started to look the connections between the right and left hemisphere kind of just looked like this. Like there's like the little gap in between my hands. Like that's where there would be like a few like strings, you know, or like neuropaths that's like connecting these like hemispheres. But for the people that studied music a lot growing up or like took it very seriously or played an instrument, their the gaps in between their brain, like the two hemispheres, it kind of starts to like look like this. And it's because the neural pathways, basically the neural pathways between there's like more bridges being built between the left and right hemisphere as you learn music as a language growing up. So like the gap between the left and right hemisphere towards the front of the brain starts to kind of like widen, which I thought was weird. I was like that like at least to me who doesn't study MRI scannings at all. I was like when this like show that like music is like making like it worse like hypothetically, but the only reason that the gaps are able to get bigger in the neural pathways is because you're building so many neural pathways between the left and right hemisphere. It's actually like it's morphing the brain as a whole,
That's pretty
That's
wicked.
crazy.
which I thought was like absolutely crazy. And people, the scientists also go as far as to say that studying music at an early age, or even just studying music in general, not to say that you can't do this as an adult. Like, yes, you can still do stuff to your brain even
It's
after it's
never
done
too
developing.
late.
That it's never too late. Don't let that fear kill you. But for people that studied music at all, they showed an improvement in motor skills, speech, language, and emotional well-being. And one of the biggest things that people found, specifically in children that studied music, was that they had way more like self-discipline than a lot of other people. And I think that kind of has to go into the practice of like studying music or like practicing an instrument,
Yeah, I think
like
I would
having
attribute
something in
that
your
to a craft specifically,
yeah.
like having something to do. Because I think that would just be like self-discipline would fall under people who have to stick themselves to a routine for a required outcome, regardless of what it is that they want to do. Say an athlete, say someone who's making music, say a chess performer. You know, just somebody who does something specifically versus somebody who doesn't. But
Yeah.
music would probably, like you were saying, though, not to take away from music, because it does definitely require a large level of understanding that I will admit I don't have. I can't read music like that, but
Yeah. I can't even really I can't read music either. Like not fluently. Like
yeah, but you play
I
the
can like figure out
guitar,
like where
so
notes are. I mean, yeah, but sheet music for guitar is like unless I'm trying to play like hot cross buns, like it gets real like it gets real crowded real fast.
Yeah.
One last thing that I wanted to add though, as far as like my segment for like my research, music can even get used for to help with people with like specific disabilities, including motor skills and speech,
Mhm.
which is nuts because basically what I was describing earlier, you know, it activates different parts and like music activates all different parts of the brain, not just like one specific part.
Mhm.
So basically, the biggest example that I saw was for people that had suffered from something like a stroke or like something that would like afterwards would probably cause your speech to like probably be like a little bit more impaired.
Mhm.
The scientists and medical professionals described it as because music activates so many different parts in your brain. Uh, Actually, let me take this example a step farther. They were trying to help a patient say the word light, and she was really struggling to say the word light. But the medical professionals argue that because so many parts of your brain are active when you're listening to music, you can basically create alternative routes past damaged parts of your brain. You can rewire your brain
It's pretty
to like
wild.
connect those like you basically just make like a detour road. You form a detour road that wasn't how your brain was formed before in order to like, oh, this is like the part of me that like wants to say the word. We're gonna create like a new brain path to get over to the language part and the motor skills that actually require me to say the word. So what they did is this girl was struggling to say the word light, but the medical professionals that were helping her, her speech therapist, they started singing that, oh, it's like this little light of mine.
Mhm.
It's like a little like I think it's a church nursery rhyme,
Yeah.
but it's like this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. But when they were scanning her brain activity, and once they got her singing along with like the actual song, she was able to say the word light because it triggered muscle memory and parts of her brain that had said light before in like the more musical category of her
Mm,
brain. And through that, like she was like really struggling to say this word before. And as soon as they started singing the song and she started singing with her, she was saying light, like she was saying the word light perfectly.
Yeah.
that's
Like it was
fire.
before like she couldn't even like utter it out. Like she couldn't even like it
That's
was
fire.
like there was like it was like she would go to get like she would go to say the word and like something would stop her, like probably because her
Yeah.
brain
It's
ran
just like
into the damaged part of the
your
brain
tongue
Hmm.
tied
that they're
shit.
trying to fix.
Right.
And I just thought, yo, music is medicine, dude. Like
A,
that
s-
stuff is crazy.
a similar thing on that topic. Have you guys heard about vibroacoustic therapy?
No.
So this was something I found pretty crazy. Basically, the origins of they call it just VAT is back in 1970 when a Finnish musician and researcher named Olav Skill, I believe is how his name would be. I don't know if it's pronounced correctly like that, but either way, he began exploring the therapeutic effects of low frequency vibrations on the body. And basically, what he had found was that gentle vibrations combined with music or sound could A, promote relaxation, B, sensory stimulation, C, overall well being, and then one other thing it was saying is that it also could help chronic pains, sleep disorders, um, where's they're at, stress reductions, and mental health conditions. Probably along what you were talking about with like the slurred speech and things of that sort. Just because
Hmm.
if you're not able to talk, because your brain pathways are all kinds of blocked up. But I just thought it was crazy that the idea of just low frequency vibrations on your body in certain places can just help.
Yeah.
I think
Just
it's really
better.
interesting that it's low frequencies over everything because like there's the argument that like or there's not really an argument. There's a scientific fact that like frequencies and vibrations make up everything of our reality. And so
Mm-hmm.
like if you put it on a scale of like we're human beings, like we're not on high as a frequency as like a higher up being or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would only make sense that the lower vibrations would actually heal our physical bodies because being physical is a presence of lower vibration.
That
Just
is
something I
valid.
thought I'd throw out there. That's what I
That
instantly
actually
thought
is
of.
a really, really, really good point. But
Because like
that,
for me, I would figure originally before I did any research, I would figure that it would be like higher frequencies. Like I'm trying to like tune into something that's like a little bit bigger than me in order to get like some form of like healing from above,
mhm,
like type beats. But I guess that logic kind of gets flipped on its head
yeah,
for me at
it
least.
really, really does.
I have some questions for y'all before we wrap up, I guess.
What's up?
So do you guys ever find yourself or I'm assuming you guys listen to more than one genre of music.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you guys say you guys listen to a lot or like a
yes.
few?
I
Yeah, I
listen
definitely
to
listen to a lot of
everything
different genres.
pretty much except for like heavy screamo. I'm not really into. That's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. All right. What genres? We didn't really talk about genres of music, so I guess this is off the topic of what we talked about. But I just had some question
No,
from
it
Oh
kind
no,
of
from
plays in.
I'm glad that you brought it back because I was
Yeah, it
actually
plays in.
about to try and tie it back to like our personal music experiences, like what kind of music we listen to when we find ourselves listening to some kinds of music, etc. So I'm excited.
Well, all right, cool. Well, I was gonna say, well, what like if me personally, I'll say, I like find myself listening to like a genre of music more than the other genres I listen to in a certain time frame, and then I'll like switch it up, kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Um, like I don't know what I'm looking for is like phases.
Yeah,
Phases of what I
Yeah.
listen.
I
Like
have.
I still like here. So like I listened to like a good amount of metal recently, but
Mhm.
before that I was listening to like a lot of hardstyle, which is like more electronic shit. And I still love hardstyle, and I feel like metal then, but I was willing to like one or the other more. So I was gonna ask if you guys have phases of what you listen to. What genres do you like notice like, or do you notice like your like personality changing during those phases listening to the genres, I guess?
Minorly, and it's only
Isaiah,
because
I'll
my
let you go.
phases are
Yeah,
so
I'll let you go first.
dramatic. My phase swaps are so dramatic from what they are, and it's not even necessarily about my mood. It's legitimately just about how I feel. Because the only realm of music that I understand is singing or rapping. Uh, and so in my free time, I love to sing. Obviously,
Here,
it's
I'll be.
just one of the things
I'm
I
still
enjoy
listening.
doing.
I'm just gonna turn off the camera really quick, okay?
Yeah, no stress.
Or
In my free time, I love singing. You know this. I send you videos, and I be doing all kinds of
yeah.
random nonsense. I love rapping. I be doing the same thing. Whatever. So my genre flop goes from like very fast rap, very fast, very fast rap, like bruh or off D's or middle child isn't even that fast actually. Paradise by Big Sean. These are literally songs because most of my drives are like 3 to 5 minutes most places, so I only play like one song at a time. So I play the same like 10 songs in that phase, but then I'll listen to the flip side, which is like pop and music that I can sing my heart out. That sounds like if somebody heard me singing, they'd think I'm heartbroken, but really I'm the happiest I've ever been because I'm singing right now and
So
it's
okay,
fun.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I
my
was
it doesn't
yeah, good.
entirely change my mood, but I do notice that I'm more I'm happier and more upbeat when I'm rapping, and I'm much more calm and relaxed when I'm singing.
Okay. Okay, well, how long do your phase last for? Because like I've listened to like I listened to hardstyle for like a few months, and I've listened to metal for like a couple months now.
I've always
Like you mean
listened to every kind of music. Like I just bounce around. It's not my
most?
playlist. I could play rap, and then the next song would be K-pop,
Oh,
and then the next song would be pop, and then the next song would be
yeah.
like
Let's specify.
soul.
I work the same way. I just have every song in my like songs. What I mean is like songs that I'm like looking for because I'm always putting new songs in my like songs. Mainly is like metal songs as of late, and before that it was like that. But I just listen to like every type of music. And I guess what I was trying to say is that like when I listen to like hardstyle a lot, like I was like more upbeat, but I was just like more like I don't know, like it's like more like boom, boom, boom. I was more like boom, boom, boom. What's next or whatever. And
Hmm.
when it's where been metal, um, not angry, but but like as it's like more twisted and shit like that. And so like when I've been like drawing shit, like we went camping and like all the sunsets I was drawing, I always like put like a dark twist into it, whatever, like that. Like one of them, I try like to draw like a ritual, like them summoning Cthulhu in the background, and then yeah, I forgot what the other was, but like yeah, I was just I don't know, I was just saying like there's like minor things like here and there, like just change how I think. I feel like when I listen to music, I was just wondering if there was like subtle things that you guys noticed that changed like as you listen to.
I'm gonna say, I feel like when it comes to like my phases in like music in my life, like I can definitely like music has definitely followed who I am like
Yeah,
accordingly. I can definitely say like growing up, like when I was still like pretty heavily involved in church and stuff, I was pretty much only allowed to listen to like Christian music for probably like the first like 10-ish, 12-ish years of my life, unless I was
yeah.
sneaking away on the family computer to go to the wonderful land of YouTube to
Yes, yes.
play replay by that one dude. Shawty's like a melody
Oh, right,
in
right.
my yeah, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah, that's the one.
I would sneak away to listen to like the hit songs every once in a while, but for the most part, I was forced to listen to mostly Christian music. The Christian radio was always on. The only
yeah, yeah.
CDs I had to play for the most part were either my dad's rock CDs or the or like the Christian music that I was listening to a lot. Like especially even like going to church. Like I was listening to like worship music going to church every Sunday.
Hmm.
But as I kind of like started to like veer away like more from like I knew that like religion wasn't really for me and like I wasn't taking it like as seriously anymore. I definitely started to like kind of phase more into like the rock music that like my dad had, like all like the I guess he had like tons of CDs in our basement, like tons and tons and tons of CDs of just like
Okay.
pretty much like most famous rock bands from the past like 50 years that you can think of. Like anybody from like Queen to like Lambs of God to like Anthrax to like Metallica to
I
like
love Lamb of God.
Yo, Lamb of God, I saw them at a live show a couple years
Really?
ago. That was
That's
sick.
sick.
They played with Slayer and oh my goodness, I always forget the name of this band, but they're like the weirdest, kookiest metal band I've ever heard. Besides the point though,
Yeah.
no, like when I kind of started to get into more of my like rebellious-ish like phase of my life where I was like kind of like starting to form my own personality and realizing that everything that I was doing wasn't really like my own.
Mhm.
I definitely started to like veer into like the rock path of music. I listened to tons of rock all the time. That probably absorbed most of my music throughout the 6th to 8th grade years for me. And in that music, like I found like a sense of like rebellion, like in that point of my life, as maybe I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to while being in middle school. Middle school is definitely like a phase where you're trying to like figure yourself out. Like I feel like that's why there's like so much like weird chaos in middle school. Like everyone's like you're kind of like starting to like lean away from being a kid and like you're starting to grow and you're starting to notice that everybody else around you is growing like mentally, physically, emotionally. And
Yeah.
something is just like kind of like changing. And in like my kind of like rock rebellion, I guess you could call it, I kind of started to figure out more who I was. Like I was like, I don't really like care about like church that much, or like I don't really care about like school that much. And like both of those things were like things that were forced to be taken very seriously in my life. And then you kind of transfer on to like my high school years, like freshman through senior year. And dude, I was depressed for like pretty much like most of my high school, actually the entirety of my high school experience. And
Yeah.
once I kind of like got to that like high school phase, like my freshman and sophomore year, I pretty much listened to like all 8 available Coldplay albums at the time, like on repeat. Like it was just like, bro, it was sad, bro. I was sad. I listened to Coldplay all the time, but I also did that because it helped. I feel like as like I go through these phases, like the music kind of helped me feel what I was trying to feel or didn't know how to feel, which I think is super important because I'm a huge believer that music is a language that goes beyond words.
Mhm.
Like I can think of like actually a few experiences where I've like been hanging out with people that don't speak the same language as me, but I'm like at a party or something and like I have absolutely no idea what the other person across from me is saying, but the music is playing and we are both dancing and we are both smiling and it's like I don't even like really feel like I need to like understand the words of like what
Yeah.
this person is saying. Like we're just here vibing, having a good time tonight.
Oh yeah.
And I
Sync
think that's the
analogy.
most important thing for music above all. It's
Yeah.
like music is something that humans inherently enjoy. There's different styles of it. It's like rooted into rhythm, melody, harmony. It's rooted into the nature in our environment, our natural environments around us, as well as in society as well.
Mhm.
Uh, but I guess to kind of go back, I listened to a ton of depressing music when I was in high school because I was depressed.
Yeah.
And I kind of like after high school was like said and over with, I'm kind of back to I'm because like I was always listening to other genres before, but like the albums and songs that I found myself going back to would be like in those phases that I was just like telling you about. Like it's
Mhm.
not like I was like only listening to like that stuff. But these days I find it really interesting because I don't really have like a super specific genre that I listen to all the time right now. I definitely am like in the most explorative phase of my life when it comes to music. I'm just like anything that sounds good of any genre, I'm just kind of like picking up and like throwing down in my playlist. But I also
Yeah.
find that kind of symbolic in a way if we're gonna put like my music into like phases because I'm in my early 20s. I'm at now at a phase of my life where I'm just trying to figure out like everything, what I want to
Yeah.
be, what I want to
Yeah.
do, how I'm going to do it. I'm so like mesmerized by the world around me now. And I find it almost kind of poetic that I'm like starting to absorb like pieces of music that are not at all any related. Like if I could pull up my recently added for you guys right now on my Apple Music, like it would just be
Yeah.
all over the board. And I
Yeah.
find it poetic in a way. I feel like music can help lead the way in what we're feeling as well as we can help like lead music into our lives that helps us like how we're feeling. I feel like it kind of works both ways, if
So
that makes any
that
sense
Mhm.
what I just
yeah,
said.
perfect. That actually leads me to my second question, my follow-up question with this thing, is that would you say that you your like music taste is more influences like your mindset? Or like or would you say that your mindset more influences your music taste? And I'm sure it's probably gonna be more of like like mindset influence music taste. But to what to like I don't know. Do you think your music taste still influences your mindset to an extent, or like how your mindset progresses from a certain point?
I
Because
mean,
I'll go ahead if you feel like you got it. You can answer.
to a degree, I would say, yeah, like it goes both ways. Most of the time, when you go to listen to music, obviously it's going to be music you feel like you want to listen to. So it's going to be the music that you listen
Right,
to.
exactly.
But if you're, say, in a happy mood, like for myself, and you go choose to listen to a sad song, and then you start actually like listening to that sad song and starting to relate it to things in your life, then maybe it'll start to affect your mindset and bring you down. But if you do what I do for my sake, like I said, I listen to sad songs just because those are generally the songs that have like very interesting vocals in them. So I like to sing
Yeah,
along with those to try and see A, test my limits, and B, just kind of I enjoy it. And
yeah,
so when I listen to those, it doesn't necessarily bring me down by any means, but I will say when I listen to like a very, very hype rap song that's super energetic, super pumped up, and I actually get into that song, it immediately will wake me up. Like I could be half asleep and you could play like Off D's by JID and J. Cole, and immediately I'm gonna be like jumping up, doing backflips. It's
I I will say I don't. It's not really like for rap songs. There's just like a type of like hype nostalgic song that like everyone has like a few of them. Like and
Mhm.
like when you hear it like once in a while, it just gives you like that like type of energy like almost nothing else will. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like you just hear it, like fucking banging to that shit. You're like, yeah,
For me,
yeah,
Father
yeah.
Stretch My Hands Part 2 by Kanye
Mm.
West. I used to
Mm.
have people wake me up to that stuff because I suck at getting out of bed. Bro, that shit gets me up,
Nice,
bro. That
yeah.
shit gets me up and awake,
Fucking
bro. That
yeah.
shit gets me up and
I
awake,
can't
bro.
even
I
hate.
said,
All right, but
I
we do
said,
got to
now we
wrap it
top
up at
up
this
the
point
bottle.
because we're coming up on 52 minutes. So, on that note, I do want to state, as it's clearly shown, music is a very dynamic and interesting thing that can be used in so many ways
I'm gonna
beyond what
say,
you may think.
Mm-hmm.
listen to music. It's good for your brain. It's good for developing your brain. It's good for your emotions. It's wonderful. I think I said
Yeah,
in the previous podcast before, but like physical art, like paintings, drawings, or whatever, that's how we decorate our space. Music is how we decorate our time. Enjoy music. It's a whole part of art that you might be missing out on.
Yeah,
yeah.
music is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this talk we had about energies, sound, frequencies, and all kinds of random nonsense because this got all over the place. But
This did
it
get
was,
all over the
for the
place.
most part, it was all related to sounds and frequencies and music and, whatnot. But anyways, if you're interested in different ways or different thoughts about how the music you listen to affects you, maybe start doing some digging into that. Think to yourself how you're feeling and why you're selecting the music that you're listening to, or how the music that you're listening to may actually be having an effect on your mind. Those are both things that a lot of people may not take into consideration on a day-to-day basis, but if you do, you may find a little bit of a change. Just a little bit. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, everybody. And remember, keep on climbing.
Rhymes you all.
I only have one
Climb
hand.
you all. He only has one hand. Poor pie, one hand pie.